These are my favorite ones. Are you hungry? No? How are you doing, Liya? At some point, I was in Caucasus, and we turned on TV, and there was an interview with an old man, you know, one of those shepherds in the mountains. And the interviewer asks him, so Granddad, what's going to happen next? What's going to be in the future? Better? He said, it's going to be worse. Better. Ekaterina Gordeyeva and Lia Akhedzhakova. The European Union had its session in the Council of Europe, and there were standing ovation for Zelensky, president of Ukraine, when he came there. And he's short, and he came there to the podium and said, I don't have notes, I'll speak just like it is. He was talking without showing off, without all these passes. Smart, reserved. And then after him, there was this big man speaking, and I think he was the head of one of the parliamentary groups, and he started crying. He was also speaking without notes, and from time to time he was wiping off his tears, and the whole parliament got on their feet, and there was standing ovation for both of them. They've paid quite a price for the ovation. They haven't yet. And on Instagram, from my name, they made an Instagram account, and in the morning first, somebody posted there that I fled Russia and I'm funding Ukrainian army. So this story about $10,000, it's lie, right? So just think about it, how I can transfer this money. So you don't have any social media, you're not there at all. See, I don't know how internet works. I didn't master it. I barely manage smartphone, and it makes me hysterical. Did they threaten you? But as my lawyer told me, that all the threats are in social medias, but I'm not there. So did they call you? No, they didn't call me. Do you have shows now? The first bread that this whole stink was about, they almost closed the show because the subject of the show was the war in Donbass, because I'm playing the grandmother whose grandson went to Donbass, but she thought he went to Chechnya, and her grandson got killed in the war. So, and I'm afraid, because the show is anti-war, and Renat Toshimov, the playwright who wrote this play, The First Bread, he's a young Tatar from Yekaterinburg city, and he wrote there all these meanings that should be heard today, now. So in those wars, and those grandmothers who lose their grandsons in those wars, and all that they call here the gay propaganda. And there was this cemetery in the play that they completely destroyed, and there were graves of the heroes of the Second World War. They destroyed it, and they put a bakery there and a kiosk with food, where they sell in this kiosk. I have these lines in the play. They sell a fake cognac, kiosk on the cemetery. And there on that cemetery, they had graves of heroes. And my character, Nuria, she says, forgive me, heroes, that I'm trampling on you, and here's my respect to you. And she's watering them with cognac. She's watering this soil with fake cognac, where all these victors, heroes of the war are lying. But don't you think there is a certain dissonance that you're playing this show in a state-owned theater? You know, at some point, the Ministry of Culture really astonishes me since Medinsky's time, this Minister of Culture. So they say there should be censorship that's supposed to be watching our theaters, that our theaters would be communicating only traditional values, but they did not put into words what are those traditional values. But thank God, probably all directors rebelled. Everybody whom we respect and enjoy their best shows, and right now they took this law away from consideration. And I think they're going to kill Russian theater with all its traditional values. But you see what I'm saying? So, you know, the theater and the state is kind of the same thing, and you somehow, you're cooperating with this theater. What I do, I cooperate with my audience all across Russia, all the way to Blagoveshchensk in the Far East, and all the way to Kaliningrad, and to the north, to Arkhangelsk, into the south, to Tbilisi, in Georgia. This is my audience. This is all mine. And what I'm communicating to them is what I think is important and meaningful, and what my directors think important and meaningful. So we need to educate them, we need to console them. And to re-raise them in a sense. And don't you think it's in vain? No, it's not in vain. Culture will save the world. Tanks and Bayraktars, drones, Turkish drones. This is really horrifying. So culture is stronger. Yes, always. Culture is always stronger if it's not imposed the censorship that we had during the Soviet time, when they put on the shelves one of the best films, when great shows were closed, or the censorship was saying what should be cut from the shows, so that it would be kind of digestible for the censor. And censors, that was the worst thing that could be endangering theater, cinematography, literature. I'm not going to tell you who were those censors. So you think the show will be prohibited? But you know, we had investigators in the theaters, and this Serb nationalistic group came to the theater. You can't even imagine what it was. They were walking around with a funeral wreath around the theater, around Sovremennik. And then on TV you could see this head of this Serb movement, this Gosha guy, and he said that they have this tool that they tried already in doc theater. So it's a bottle, they put the shit, excrements, then they mix it with some sort of chemical. One of their guys goes to the audience, and at some point the guy opens the bottle, and it's gushing from the bottle, the shit gushing from the bottle. And this is what he was intimidating the theater, not myself. Then another one from their group, another blogger, this jerk with the sunglasses, he was demanding that they would take away my title, People's Artist of Russia, and he was saying, this old wench that nobody needs, but with this gray hair. But I had this wig with gray hair for this show. You can't even imagine what we had. Are you scared? No. Why not? But nobody was threatening to kill me. And also, there was a written accusation from the war veterans, call them veterans. And the chief investigator, Bastrykin, had this accusation. So did you think to leave the country? Where I can go, you know, it's too late. Where am I going to go and why would I go? Let them go. I have nowhere to go. Though I had some offers to leave. Olga Karach, the journalist, she said to me, so let's do it quickly. We will move you very quickly. Don't be afraid, but we need your cat to weigh no more than 10 kilos. So the cat was supposed to lose some weight to go with me. But you know, I saw people on the subway in Ukraine who were hiding from the tanks. Those people were in the subway. There was an old woman with a cat, and she was patting the cat and crying. There were dogs. There was a boy and a dog. And you know, those who were moved to other countries as refugees, and they were like standing in some city, they have no place to sleep, to find shelter and all that. And there was a little boy on the street, and he had a puppy wrapped in a blanket. And what happened to this boy? Where is he? And all those people who had to leave their homes. It's a nightmare. It's a catastrophe. And all of them, all families are in the subway with grandfathers and grandmothers, with their pets. They spend nights there. I saw that somebody set up a tent. No medication, no bread. How old were you? 3 years old when the Great Patriotic War started? Not really, but I remember the time after the war. I was sent to my grandmother and grandfather to Kharkov city in Ukraine, and only first grade was there in school, and then I was sent back to mother and father. And you know, now when I see how Kharkov is on fire and how all these tanks are attacking it, I just can't stand it. I can't see it. The Square of Liberty in Kharkov, March 1st, 2022. The police department in Kharkov in March 2022. Dormitory in Kharkov, March 2022. Square of Liberty in Kharkov. You know, they're burning Kharkov. It's a horrifying scenes. And I thought that it could be possible in some sort of sci-fi movie. Or when they show documentary on the Second World War. Kiev city. It's a beautiful city, great city, very hospitable city, beautiful. And we were on tour in this city, in Donbass. I used to go there since I was 23. In Crimea, it was the best thing in my life because, you know, we had this Iron Curtain and you couldn't go anywhere. And the best a young actress could get is to get a vacation in the special resort in Crimea. It was called Actor, that resort. And all our theater of young spectator choose when I wouldn't get the travel voucher. So there was this Olga Tsiptuk, this woman there, and we used to spend night in her house. And sometimes I wouldn't sleep in the house. I would sleep outside under the mulberry, and you wake up in the morning all covered in mulberry. And then in the night you could hear those little taps on the floor, and these hedgehogs would go to drink milk that she put for them. This son of a bitches, what have they done? The whole Ukraine, you know, we were traveling around the country, touring so many theaters with Sovremennik Theatre, with our own shows. We went there. I was playing together with Bogdan Stupka, this Ukrainian actor, great actor. We played Gogol, one of Gogol's pieces. And we played in Franco Theatre in Ukraine. It was so touching the house was full. And every time he was telling me, so you know, you have to go on stage and say, hello stage, otherwise we'll fail and forget the text, forget the lines. You know, they never had this hatred to Russians, and now we're gonna have that. It's crazy. We attacked our beloved Ukraine. We're attacking Kiev, and you know, we always tried to get to Kiev when lilac was blossoming. And it's beautiful city, Ivano-Frankovsk city and Lvov city. We absolutely adored Ukraine because it was such a gift to go to Ukraine on tour with our theater, and all great companies always traveled to Ukraine with their shows. And now, you know, we have actors that did films in Ukraine. We played on those stages. And now, those actors here, they wouldn't speak up to protect Ukraine. Why don't they do that? They afraid of losing the job? No, some of them do it consciously. They think that they need to protect Russian authorities. The authorities are in danger, and we know their names. We know these actors. So I'm kind of speaking to them. So what are they supposed to do? They need to speak up. Not to protect the authorities that gives them benefits and they love so much, but they need to speak up to protect Ukraine, because Ukrainians were fighting together with us, and they're in the ground across the Europe during the war. My first poem that I learned when I went to the first grade in school, early in the morning, when all children were sleeping, Hitler gave the order to his troops. You know, all of us, we have friends in Kiev, in Kharkov, that is bombed now. And when they show us this footage, we can see that Kharkov is on fire and the maternity hospital is bombed down. And you can see these women that are giving birth in some basement. People are dying, children are dying. Just look at those scenes. It cannot be lie. Garmash, actor of our theater, he's from Kherson. I know that all his family is there. I can only imagine what he is doing, like what he's, how desperate he is. He probably went there. Natalia Fateyeva, this our actor, she's from Kharkov. She's crying and she's asking me, so where I can say things, where I can speak. Do you have any connections? I want to find someone. I'm not afraid of anything. Many people said that whether going to be the war or not. Did you believe that? Let me tell you this. At the end of December of 2021, this guy, Zhirinovsky, the deputy of Russian Duma, he is sick, doing very bad now, you know. But I heard with my own ears, he went to the press and he said, we need to attack this Ukraine on 1st of January at 4 o'clock in the morning while they're still not sober. So if I was the head of the state, so why they didn't agree on anything, so I would really like blast them right now on the 31st of December in the night on the January 1st, you know, when people are still tipsy, kind of about 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, when all this West will be sleeping, and not necessarily to bomb all them all, but, you know, selectively. But, you know, when I look at it, it's a crime, you know. And then when I saw all these awful troops and tanks, all this horrible military equipment was moving there, because, you know, for some reason they moved all the troops from the Far East, because, you know, the Chinese there and we're not afraid of them. So all these troops were moved to Donbass. And they surrounded like this, and then they started what is called military exercise. But I've been living in this country for quite a while, and they showed us those military equipments and military exercises. And when we saw that, I knew right away that it's not going to be just military exercise. And when I heard this historical speech of Putin, our grantor of constitution, when I heard about this speech about Pecheneg tribe through Lenin, and Lenin was punished quite a lot, and Boris Yeltsin, our first president, everybody was kind of guilty of what's going on in Russia, and we have this horrible state of Ukraine. And I even remember these words, neo-Nazi, drug addicts, and Bandera followers, and it's impossible to endure that anymore. And then we've seen this horrible council of Security Council. All these guys, they were mumbling something. They couldn't say something when they were saying, so we need to add these regions of Lugansk and Donetsk to Russia. Okay, let's dwell on it a little bit. So you've been living in the country for quite a while. How these grown-up men, those who actually made themselves, and so what can be done to them so that they would be so afraid? Are they afraid, or they really believe in it? Well, first of all, some of them, they have ambitions to conquer the world. No, to be in power, and it gives them a lot. So if we could vote for real, so it wouldn't be like pseudo elections, so we would have different people in power. But now they have power, money, they can have any benefits, sometimes yachts, sometimes they're flying on their private jets, and they call them elite. And to lose all of it for them is to say, don't bomb, don't attack Ukraine, and they would lose it all. So all of them who are around him, they know as soon as they lose their power, all they have will be gone. More than that, they will be put before the court, and they will be asked why they have all these villas, yachts, and, for example, their salary was just 100,000 rubles per month, and immediately they will be prosecuted. They cannot do this. They are bound to all these crimes. And more than that, people would be asking how they got all those mansions and yachts, because our people are poor, and we are going to be living in horrible economy. And those who have their salary like 15,000 rubles and whose pension is 25,000 rubles, and those single moms who are working low-paid jobs, who's going to help them? America? France? The UK? Denmark? Italy? Who? Who's going to help them? Who's going to treat their feeling of guilt? Who's going to treat them at all? Because we don't have medications, we're going to be cooking our medication ourselves now, Who? Who's going to treat them? Besides, there are people who are very much afraid. There will be people who will be punished. They will be punished for speaking up. And I even think that all people who work in cultural sphere, except for Baskov singer, Dmitry Pevtsov, this actor, it's a shame. So, except for those who are supporting this war, we signed a letter. Thank Lev Ponomarev, this human rights activist, and there were like 1 million signatures. But 1 million, it's almost nothing. It's less than 1/100th in 140 million countries. So, but it's a quantity, no quality. Just look at those people who are in this list. All intelligentsia, academics, scientists. This is the elite. For some reason, it doesn't work. At what point you think there was this disunity in your area? You spoke about Pevtsov, this actor. I think it's a horrible mistake. I've known Pevtsov for a long time. Talented actor. I have no idea how that happened. How can one betray himself like that? And for what? I have no idea. And I will never understand that. I play in this show where only young people participate in this. And none of them would wish for this nightmare. From many people I hear, and they say, I will keep silent because I'm afraid of I'm scared for my family, I'm scared for my career. And some actors, they're afraid they won't be filmed, and they keep silent. So why silent? I watched this stream at Anton Dolin's channel, Radio Dolin, this actor Tsyganov, and he keeps talking there. He always says things, and he says, my name is Evgeny Tsyganov, and I'm against the war. You can ask me who's asking you, and yes, fair enough, nobody's asking me. And nobody asked me to go for this war. And there were also other actors in that show. Balagov was there, a student of Alexander Sokurov, the filmmaker. And he wrote it right here on his chest. And for this act, your picture won't go to Hollywood because our main enemy is Empire of Evil. Putin came up with quite a thing. So this community that helps Ukraine, he said that this community is Empire of Evil, of lie, because they lie completely all the time. And this Rospotrebnadzor, this censorship agency, so Rospotrebnadzor, the censorship agency, they prohibited to believe anything except for Igor Konashenkov, who is official representative of Ministry of Defense. Have you heard that they introducing a new definition, high treason? And also words could be considered as a high treason. So aren't you afraid of punishment and to be arrested? But you know, right now I'm just so concerned and disturbed about people killed, and Kharkov is on fire. And they're attacking Kiev, you know, houses are destroyed, people are without homes, and these old people are on the streets, and you know, men, they go to donate their blood, and you know, there's this blood bank in Kharkov, and because of this, I have this lump in my throat, and I can't sleep. You may probably hate Ukraine. I just have no idea for what. I was everywhere there in the Western Ukraine, and so where they found those neo-Nazis, you know, there are unpleasant people everywhere in every city. Everywhere. For example, I don't like certain people, and very much. And all this State Duma, this Russian parliament, when they say that this ORDLO, this regions of Donbass and Lugansk, they get their complete sovereignty, and now they're ours, belong to our state too. So like Abkhazia, part of Georgia too, and I love Abkhazia a lot. And here's my friend Rizo Gabriadze, this puppetry director. Abkhazia, part of Georgia. What's that? And now it turns out this ORDLO, Lugansk and Donbass. So they didn't cover Donbass yet. So there's Mariupol, this part of Dnipropetrovsk that they're trying to get. Horrible. And I don't know, things I say, is it going to help or not? I need that everybody should speak up. All these guys that go to those rallies, whom they drag on the ground, where's their conscience? these guys who are like wearing these things and look like cosmonauts, and they're very big, probably they're wearing the bulletproof vests, and they also have these helmets. And they're dragging people on the ground. They're dragging old people. In all cities of Russia, in St. Petersburg, in Yekaterinburg, in Novosibirsk, in Khabarovsk, in Moscow. And then, of course, they're going to go to the war. And, Russian Guard is there now, too. So the intelligentsia people, they feel this feeling of guilt and shame. For example, there's certain compromises that had to do with charity. For example, so you shut up and you help children. There were some humanitarian compromises. You shut up and you managed to save your theater. And then it turns out that all of it is not important anymore. So you were keeping silent, but you could not prevent anything. And what happened, happened. So what do you think? Do people that were making the compromise, do they have to feel guilty? Well, you see, with this feeling of guilt, we are doing pretty badly in this country. Nobody feels guilty for these elections that we fucked up so much. So I don't go to vote. So everybody that I voted for, nobody was elected. But sometimes, there are pretty good people who promoted those candidates. And if these candidates got in the parliament, in the authorities, I'm sure the country would be completely different. So who's guilty? We are. Because we screwed it up. At what point we screwed it up? What point? I have no idea where that point was, where we lost the whole thing and we fucked it up so badly. I don't know. Today, in the 21st century, a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon. What is it? It just you must be out of your mind. And when it was said, the situation is so horrible, and Ukraine is playing so badly, and you're threatening them with the nuclear weapon. And so this is the last point. So have you ever thought that you're going to live to this and experience anything like that? No, never. How do you sleep? I sleep badly, and because of it, I sleep really badly, only using soporifics. So where normal people can find solace, I have no idea. In books, I just read this book, Checkpoint, by Glukhovsky, a great book, and it's such a metaphor of what's happening here and where we're heading. So what's going to happen to Russia? It describes an epidemic that is called obsession. And because people hear things and they get obsessed, they get infected with the obsession, and there's only one solution for that. They drive nails into their ears, and there's only the Moscow city that is protected by the troops, and in Moscow city there is the emperor, and the emperor is protected from all sides. But those who are obsessed, they're just about to break the protection. And Sorokin, this writer who wrote Dr. Garin book, also metaphor, after the war in Russia, there was war in Russia, so Russia split into small regions, and somewhere in the mountains there is this chief doctor that holds this resort, and it's a very expensive resort where they keep all dictators of the world, and they end their days in this resort, and all of them have their brain lesions. And there is some Vladimir guy who doesn't say anything except for, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me. Remember that? So Do you have any association with that? Don't you think that you're in minority? No, I don't think so. All my life, if I'm not in the car or in the subway, people come to me and they say that they are with me, how grateful they are for what I'm saying, because they think the same way. And if they were asked, they would say the same thing. So, you know, I traveled across Russia, and not only Russia. I was in America and in Israel and in Germany before the pandemic, whole Germany and whole Belarus, starting with Babruisk, which is 150 kilometers from Minsk, because we had our shows in Babruisk. These 4 characters of the show, they're from Babruisk, from Belarus. And we got a very warm welcome in Babruisk. And then we had a show in Minsk, and always on the street I meet people. And when I go to some other theater for a show and somebody from the audience comes to me to discuss the show and to say thank you to me and for the profession, for the role, and particularly for my civic stance. And sometimes I feel awkward because what about my civic stance? And the result is really zero from what I do and saying. But I already spoke to all the culture makers. So guys, don't keep silent because we're done anyway. After the war, I know what was after the war. I saw it after the Nazis. What do you think? Ukrainians, will they forgive, not Russia, but Russians? It's extremely hard. And when I speak with people in Kiev and I begin bawling because, you know, I have this lump in my throat, I don't think they will forgive us during my lifetime. And I will never forget it and never forgive it myself. Maybe like Germany, you know, 80 years. Maybe after that, I don't know. But will we be able to do it? I remember what was the world after the war. First thing I would like to suggest, you know, don't weed out nettle. You know, there was a lack of nettle, so we were eating soup made of nettle. My mother actress, my father director, we were eating soup with nettle. But you know, all streets were flooded with crippled people, you know, but not in wheelchairs. There was this like little board with wheels, and it was the legless person, and you know, begging for pennies. And there were also other cripples. They called them samovars because they had no limbs. It was horrible. It was hunger and poor and destitute people. All streets were flooded with them after the war. This is what we're facing. But you were a child in the country that was attacked. No, I'm speaking about what happens after the war. And you know, in this war, there are our guys that are dying, and their parents don't know where the children are. They don't know. And they don't know that their sons are at the war. They think that they're doing their training, that they're doing their military exercise. You know, I actually think that if anybody can change something, but these are mothers of the soldiers. You know, I know only my audience. They're not going to be those who won't speak up. And it's not because their fridge will be empty, because, you know, many people die in that war, and those people will speak up, and there will be a lot of people in captivity after this war. And there will be missing soldiers, and nobody will know where they've died. And hatred. Hatred to us. But how to preserve love? I don't know. I have no idea. My thing is to speak up. To keep speaking up. Maybe I say it improperly. Maybe it's not what I'm supposed to say. But I think it's important to speak up. We need to speak up. So what our poet Mandelstam died for? He died for his poem, "We live without feeling our country under our feet. They can't hear our words 10 steps ahead of us, but when we just speak a little bit, they immediately snitch on you to the Kremlin Highlander," referring to Stalin. And this poet died, but he wrote this poem. And after that was Gulag camp, shooting execution. And it was a horrible, horrible punishment.